Penguin Random House Audio presents The Last Colony, A Tale of Exile, Justice, and Courage by Philippe Sands. Read for you by Adjoa, Andoh, and Philippe Sands.
Dedicated to the memory of James Crawford, 1948 to 2021, and Louise Rand Silver, 1964 to 2021. What is a colony, if not the brutal truth that when we speak, graves open, and the dead walk? Evan Boland, Witness, 1998. Note to the listener. This is a true story, first recounted in a series of lectures I gave at the Hague Academy of International Law in the summer of 2022. As a participant in parts of it, I am not an independent observer, and understand that events may be seen from different angles, with different interpretations. I've tried to present a personal account in a manner that is fair and balanced. The story, which is little known and deserves a broader audience, actually comprises a number of interwoven tales. One relates to the International Court of Justice in The Hague and its role in the gradual demise of colonialism, with a focus ultimately on the case of Mauritius. Another is more personal, my own evolving relationship with the world of international law. And a third, the beating heart of this book, is the tale of Liseby Elyse, the wrongs done to her and other Chagosians, and their quest for justice that continues to this day. I've sought to capture what Madame Elyse shared with me during many hours spent together going over the text and the events, to accord with her recollection. I hope that our collaboration and friendship meet her aspirations. Our backgrounds are different, yet our paths connected through processes of law and litigation that have gradually closed the curtain on the colonial era into which Madame Elyse was born and lived, and in which my working life has been cast. In offering this account of Chagos, I've collaborated with Martin Rosen, who's provided a visual interpretation of the landmark cases touched upon in each chapter, placed in historical context. London and Bonnier, July 2022.
Prologue. La Cour. The Chagos. An archipelago with a name silken as a caress, fervid as regret, brutal as death. Shahnaz Patel, Silence of the Chagos, 2005.
La Cour. On a summer morning in The Hague, the words were proclaimed with solemnity by a man in formal attire, from whose neck hung an impressive silver chain, a symbol of authority. As practised for many decades, he announced the languid entry into the great hall of justice of the judges, robed and beribboned, making their way to their respective seats in a line behind a very long table. The president, a calm man from Somalia, who knew firsthand what it meant to be on the receiving end of British and Italian colonial generosity, stood at their centre. He glanced around the courtroom, looked at the assembled rows of lawyers and diplomats, journalists and interpreters, framed by vast stained-glass windows and crystal chandeliers, then invited us to take our seats. Sitting in the second row, directly behind me, was a diminutive lady dressed in black, the small handbag she clutched offering an air of formality, of dignity. She had travelled from distant Mauritius as a member of that country's delegation. She was here to tell a story, a short tale of the early years of her life, in the hope that her account might encourage the 14 judges in a direction that could allow her to return to the place of her birth. Home, in a real sense, where the heart is, was Peros Banhos, a tiny island that is part of an archipelago called Chagos, located in the midst of a vast Indian Ocean. From there, 5 decades earlier, along with hundreds of others, she had been forcibly removed. Liseby Elyse lived happily on Peros Banhos until her 20th year. Then, without warning, one spring day she was rounded up by the British authorities, allowed a single suitcase, and ordered to board a boat that would transport her 1,000 miles away. "The island is being closed," she was told. No one explained why. No one mentioned a new military base the British had allowed the Americans to build on another island, Diego Garcia. No one told her that Chagos, long a part of Mauritius, had been severed from that territory and was now a new colony in Africa, known as the British Indian Ocean Territory. Madame Elyse and the entire community of some 1,500 people, almost all black and many descended from enslaved plantation workers, were forcibly removed from their homes and deported. She was in The Hague to participate in a case about her islands. The 14 judges did not yet know who she was or her role in the proceedings. They would hear arguments about Britain's last colony in Africa, how it was dismembered from Mauritius, and determine whether, as a matter of international law, it belonged to Mauritius or Britain. The judges would navigate matters of history and colonial rule, traversing questions of race and rights under international law. They would confront the principle of self-determination and rule on whether a group of people could decide their own destiny or have the course of their lives determined by others. Madame Elyse was a witness for Mauritius, the African country for which I acted in the case. She would speak on behalf of Chagosians in the language of Creole, delivered with clarity, force, and passion. She could not read or write, so the judges agreed she would address them in a pre-recorded statement. She would watch them as they watched her, a woman in a black suit and a white shirt edged with lace, wearing a small blue and red badge that proclaimed, "Let us return." The President opened the proceedings with a short summary of the case, then invited the first speaker to address the court. Slowly, Sir Andoh Jugnut, 88 years old, former Prime Minister of Mauritius, member of the Bar of England and Wales, Queen's Counsel, made his way to the podium. He spoke for exactly 15 minutes, followed by 2 advocates, a short pause café, and then a third advocate. He and the lawyers spoke from prepared scripts which offered an air of theatre, the judges as audience. They did not interrupt, they did not ask questions. I made my way to the podium. I'd addressed the court many times before, yet on this occasion was somehow more anxious. Madame Elyse, now in the front row, stood briefly as I introduced her. The court should hear the voice of the Chagosians directly, I explained, to obtain a sense of the realities of colonial rule. Madame Elyse's statement was projected on 2 large screens that hung above the judges, words and images broadcast around the world. In faraway Port Louis, the capital of Mauritius, the proceedings were shown live on national television as her friends gathered in a community centre to watch. They would weep as she spoke.
M'appelle Liseby Elyse. My name is Liseby Elyse. I was born on the 24th July 1953 in Perros-Bagnos. My father was born in Liseby Elyse. My mother was born in Perros-Bagnos. My grandparents were also born there. I form part of the Mauritius delegation. I am telling how I have suffered since I have been uprooted from my paradise island. I am happy that the International Court is listening to us today, and I am confident that I will return to the island where I was born.
The translation appeared in English and French, neat captions in white at the bottom of the screen. With these opening words, the mood in the great hall changed, as a heavy silence was felt, one that accompanies a significant moment in a public space, of the kind encountered in a theatre or a concert hall, when a performer connects with an audience whose attention is fixed and keen. As Madame Elyse spoke, without a script, the President looked towards her, seated a few feet away, as memories tumbled out, Words.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?